Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's August 18th, 2016, and this is episode 4 of Spoiler Alert. I'm ChanManV.
Four episodes, Jesus.
4 episodes already, yeah. He's Ellohime, and he's over there. He's eating my addiction. And today we're talking about the people versus, or actually American Crime Story, the people versus O.J. Simpson. How you guys
Which
doing?
I didn't know was like part of the thing. Did you know that it was like part of the There was like a continuation of American Horror Story,
American
or whatever the hell
Story,
it is.
Crime Story.
I know, but it's like but it's like in that thing,
It
like
was
it has
horrible.
American Horror Story, and then it's got American Crime Story. It's like a thing. It's like a thing they're doing.
Yeah, I think it was the first one, right?
I think they're gonna. They said they're doing a new season, and it's gonna be about a completely different crime, like big trial, big case, whatever.
Yeah. This was the right one to start it with. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Kind of hard to top it at this point.
Yeah,
like.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, no crime happened because he didn't do it, but
Of course. Oh yeah, of course.
of course,
The crime happened. It was just completely, as a
at least one
conspiracy.
jury said he didn't do it. Another jury said he did do it. But yeah. So this show is going to be mostly about it. We'll talk. I mean, I've seen the documentary too, Made in America, and I know Ellohime's watched some footage too. So there'll be a lot of just O.J. Simpson trial stuff involved, but mostly we'll be discussing the show itself because it was a 10-episode show. Hopefully you guys were able to watch it too, so you can join our discussion. And if you do want to join our discussion, join this Discord channel, and we'll be pulling in some callers at the end. Monkey Overlord will be talking to you guys about it, getting you guys ready to, again, just getting you prepped for whenever we do pull on callers. So do that. Let me get I think Monkey Overlord will just keep spamming this eventually, but I want to get this link in the chat real quick so you guys can join it.
And don't ask anything about the actual trial itself because I don't know what the fuck is going on with that thing. So don't ask anything. Don't be like, Ellohime, what's your stance on blah, 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 blah. I'll be like, I have no fucking clue what to think anymore. This
DNA, Ellohime. Explain to me.
DNA. I love how DNA, everyone's like, DNA, what is it? Like in the show. That's like one of my favorite things.
What is it? The thing that makes up your entire body. Like
they start.
Well, that sounds like
it's your
silly,
genetic
stupid
makeup
science
that makes you you. It's pretty simple actually. When you break it down.
Exactly. So yeah, let's see. How should we approach? So I think the first thing to do is, well, Ellohime, I think we have an idea about you, but how much of the trial did you guys know before even this week? Just starting to watch the show or anything about it.
I remember it vaguely when I was a kid happening. I remember the car chase. I definitely remember the car chase because that was like on every channel for like 24 hours or something. However long he was doing that thing, it was just like nonstop coverage.
I'm kind of like Diction. Like I remember it being a very big deal, but I only remember it being a big deal once it was coming down to like the verdict. Like I don't think it was a big deal, or I didn't notice it was a big deal for like the year that it was going on. I just know that once the verdict was coming, that's when I noticed everybody started to watch and kind of shut up and, figure out what was going on. But I didn't know anything about it, honestly. I know 0% about what I knew that he had killed his wife or ex-wife, or that he allegedly had done that, and that was about it. I didn't know any like thing of the trial. I didn't know any details of anything really. So going into this, it was actually kind of a learning experience. I watched the show, obviously, the first 10 episodes, and then I watched some highlights from the actual trial to try to see how much of it kind of matched up, and it was actually pretty close. From what I saw, they had some scenes that were just like verbatim. But yeah, other than that,
I think everything televised.
I didn't know anything.
I think everything televised was verbatim. It'd just be interesting of like how much behind the scenes conversations and all that like was more dramatized than or made up in some way than that actually happened. Because
they
it's
had
a TV
a lot
show,
to pull
right?
from.
Yeah.
Because like it said at the end of the series, pretty much everyone except for like Judge Ito wrote a book about it.
I know,
right? So you've got all these perspectives that they may, obviously it's like they could be lying or they could be fibbing, like adding details to what happened and stuff.
Yeah.
But they did have a lot of content to pull the series from. They said it was based on this one book, but I'm willing to bet that they actually like did chunks of research on everyone's perspective they could.
Yeah, I bet they did too. I mean, then why not, right?
Yeah,
for me too. I think I definitely learned a lot just watching, you know, this and as well as OJ Made in America. Just I didn't realize a lot of things happened, especially with the trial. I knew that, you know, like the prosecution botched a lot of things, you know, just because it was such a supposedly easy case, you know, going into it, and in the end, like it, you know, it just felt like they screwed up. You know, that's kind of how I went into it, or at least that's how it's always been for me, at least my impression of it. But seeing the details of it, I mean, you start to realize, sure, they did, you know, they screwed some things up, but at the same time, you know, the defense did a good job also, you know, of trying to play into people's emotions and what was going on.
Exactly. Yeah. They didn't have any facts. So they're like, oh, well, we gotta rile the people up and make them emotional and sympathetic to the, you know, the civil rights movement and the black communities, racism, inherent racism in the system and stuff like that. It was kind of like, I feel bad for being like finding Johnny Cochran completely, you know, like just a piece of shit for doing that. But at the same time, he's not wrong. Like, he's definitely not wrong. Like,
he had an agenda. It just
he had an agenda. It was just like, it happened to show up in the court case where 2 people were fucking brutally murdered and didn't deserve that form of justice. Like, they got manipulated, and it was kind of like, I felt so bad for the dad and the sister of the guy who died. I forget his name.
I
was like,
he forgot his name. That's exactly the reason they're upset.
Yeah, that's why she's crying. Prediction. She's crying right now because of you. Okay. All right.
I feel horrible. Okay.
What's his name again? Oh, I mean, yeah.
Is that you know, what's her name and that other guy? Yeah. No, it was interesting though that even though they had no facts, they had so many random happenstances that worked in their favor. Like how that guy was a super racist and being able to get some sort of
like an interview where he said the most horrible shit.
Yeah, he says, you know, did you say the N-word? Did you say the N-word? You know, did you say it? And then he's like, no. And then just happens to come out that there's this recording of him saying it like 40 plus times.
In the worst possible
way. Like, how lucky is that? Like,
and that's... didn't he say like, I would love to like plant evidence and frames. Like, he basically says, I would love to frame a black guy for murder someday. That would be great.
Well,
no, I think he said he did. Like,
he's done it.
Oh yeah,
he actually done it. That's what was just killer about that whole bit, right? And that being the main witness for the prosecution. That's just, holy crap, that was so bad. I like in the series, like how they accentuated it by showing him in his glass case, and he's like shining his Nazi medal. Oh my god! It's like, did that really happen?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, was this guy ever confirmed Nazi?
Yeah.
Like, was he really, or was he just a super racist? You know, like, I don't think that in order to be a racist, you have to be a Nazi, you know?
No.
But man, they really painted it out like this deep, dark secret, my Nazi sympathizer case that I just clean all day. They'll never know as I ominously look into this glass.
They set it up as the Chekhov's gun, you know, where he's like, I collect war memorabilia, and the end of the episode, Nazi memorabilia, specific.
It wasn't like it was obvious enough using the N-word that many times on recording. Yeah, they had to push it to the next level, basically.
So let me ask you a question. Okay, so the show.
Yeah.
Who do you feel like did the best job, and who do you feel like did the worst job?
Oh yeah, that's easy for me.
Are you talking acting? Definitely. What's her name? Sarah Paulson, for sure.
Yeah, Marsha Clark
as Marsha Clark. And also her partner Sterling
Chris Darden.
Brown. Yeah, he was, dude, like when he got super heated, those moments, like just yelling at Cochran, like I was like, oh shit, dude, can he do that? Is he in contempt of court? He's mad.
Did you see the actual footage? I mean, I did. Sounds exactly like him. Like
he looks like him too.
He looks like him too. I mean, it was crazy.
I felt like in real life, the real life is it Darter or something like that?
Chris Darden.
Darden. I thought that he had more of a lisp. He had a little bit of a lisp in real life.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Did nobody else pick up on that? He has like a little bit of a.
I never noticed.
It's just it's a slight lisp. He's got a kind of a weird way of saying things. It's not quite a lisp, but it's not quite not a lisp.
That's why they lost the case. Is that lisp?
Yeah.
God damn it.
It almost sounded like it was sort of flamboyant, but it wasn't. It was kind of lispy. I don't know.
I kind of know what you mean.
Either
I mean,
way.
it's definitely that mixture of like gentle tone and yeah, I know what you mean though, like the flamboyant comment there. But yeah, I thought he was good. For me, I think it was Sarah Paulson, and I thought that Courtney Vance did an awesome job with Johnny Cochran. I actually had to go back and look at pictures of Johnny Cochran to kind of remember what he looked like, because I thought he looked exactly like him too.
They picked really good actors that looked the part for the most part.
Yeah.
Except for Cuba Gooding Jr. It was real. I really had to suspend disbelief because he just doesn't have the same like facial structure.
Right.
And I was like, why did they give John Travolta that douche makeup to be George Shapiro or Robert Shapiro? And then they didn't do it for Cuba Gooding Jr. to make him look a little bit like gaunter and like a, you know, like more angular face, because he's got kind of a round. It's just the structure of his face that just like does not look at anything like O.J. Simpson. His performance was great, and it was really satisfying and refreshing to see him finally get a challenging role to play after being in shitty Disney movies for the last like 20 years. You know?
Hey. Let's not attack Disney. There's no room.
All right. I don't want to see Cuba Gooding Jr. talk to sled dogs for an hour and a half. All right. That's not what he was put on his list for, okay?
Next thing we're reviewing for next week, guys.
Snow dogs.
Snow dogs.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. Snow dogs. So who do you think did the worst? Who do you think was like the worst?
John Travolta.
I think well, it was I mean, I think acting wise, John Travolta for sure, and they should have
like
just casted
flashbacks
somebody
of
else.
Battlefield Earth during some of his like more dramatic pieces that he did.
I kept
but
thinking,
at the same time,
I kept thinking
he
Face
looked
Off.
the part.
I kept thinking Face Off every time I looked at him. It's just like so distracting him being John Travolta too.
But at the same time, like Robert Shapiro, like if you do your research, he was a sketchy buffoon.
He was.
And he played a sketchy buffoon like really well. Like you wanted to punch him in the face every time he was on screen. And he would just like open his mouth like, we should settle. We should plea bargain.
I know.
We should. It's like even though you go into it being like O.J. Simpson fucking did this thing, you're still like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, let the defense do their job, you idiot.
His face was always so purse. Like, I guess that's the word. Like very like he had gotten a bad he had gotten a facial facelift or something, and his face was too stretched and that's
what he looked like. Here, there's a picture of him.
He is kind of like that, but not as
like
much as
the real guy. But even the real Shapiro, I feel like he didn't look like that.
The problem
is plastic face.
The problem is that John Travolta's had a lot of plastic surgery too.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
That's
was it just John Travolta, or was it he was made to look this way? His face was so.
They definitely did something to his eyebrows because he has really specific looking eyebrows.
Yeah.
So they definitely did that. I don't know about honestly, I think that's just straight John Travolta's plastic surgery.
But
maybe that is, man.
But
maybe
he's got he was John Travolta. Like, I mean, I've seen him act that way in other roles, and it's terrible. So that was pretty bad. Distracting. I mean, that, and also David Schwimmer. David Schwimmer looked like Robert Kardashian, but I just see Ross every time I see that dude, man.
He's got that
face. I can't get over it, man.
Yeah, he just looks like he's about to cry at every moment.
Well, this is nothing that friendship can't overcome. We're on Friends.
Yeah, exactly.
But like he was good, and like I feel like I identified with his character the most, especially when he starts to doubt everything, and he's just like that when he's talking to the guy that drove the Bronco, and he's just like, I've looked over everything from every conceivable angle, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't believe it. And I like that scene where he's having breakfast with his daughters, and he tells them that fame is fleeting.
Yeah, that was
just like, oh god,
holy
shots
shit.
fired, dude.
And then some Michael Bolton song comes on in the background too. I was like, what the hell?
That was one.
Awesome.
Listen, all this stuff with the Kardashian made me cringe so hard. They just really shoehorned it in there, man. It was like, here they all are. Before the years, here's father's wisdom coming in. Like, friendship is #1, and be a good person and character. And it's like,
Famous.
this passed away in like the early 2000s, and then it's like, this is what they became. You know? The Kardashians.
Dude, there was almost like a pause too during that when he says that famous fleeting, and then all the kids just kind of look at him for like a second, and it's just like, oh my god.
Sure, whatever, so awesome. Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me your credit card.
We just made an empire out of being famous.
Like, see, and that's another thing. See, I was so ignorant to the case that I didn't even know that the Kardashian dude was part of it. Like, I didn't even know their family was even part of this thing. Like, I had no idea. Don't they make a reference to I guess Caitlyn Jenner now? But don't they say something like mom's is like something, he's an Olympian. They're talking at the table or something.
Yeah. Like
they even like
they're saying how famous like he was because of being in the case now, right? So he's comparing how Bruce was, just famous for being an Olympian. Now he's kind of famous or whatnot.
Yeah, it was just the kids just got silent after that speech. It was so funny. It was almost like Fox wanted them to look like evil at birth, like this is just the way these kids were. They had their own philosophies outside their father's wisdom, and stuff. They knew at an early age they were going to be rich pieces of shit, and they were going to stick with that. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I know that their family was torn apart. I've caught enough of just a little bit of the Kardashian stuff to know that was a huge issue, especially between Kris and him. And they were so close. I mean, OJ
best
was
friends.
Kim's godfather, and best friends, and Nicole and Kris were best friends too. They were.
Well, how are they friends? How was the what's his name? I know it's Kardashian, but Robert Kardashian. How did he know OJ Simpson? I know that he used to be a lawyer, but I don't think it ever said in the show, and I didn't really look it up.
Attorney, like his legal counsel, but he wasn't like.
Well, he had to get his license. Like, he had to get his license again just to even be part of the legal counsel. But they met. I forget exactly how they met, like in what social circles. Like, I mean, again, like I watched some of the other documentary too. But I don't know if it was just like through country club, like whatever country club it's in Brentwood or around that area or whatnot. But they met just through social circles, and then they became super close. Like, I mean, they were best friends. Like Nicole and OJ were best friends with Kris and Robert. So this was huge, like, because Kris had already made her decision about it too. Like when Nicole died, she was completely, obviously on Nicole's side, and just OJ did it. And I mean, it was really, really tough for the family. Like from what I've seen in interviews and things with them. They didn't, they just touched on it a little bit in the series itself, but that's a whole other thing too. Just the whole Kardashians, they've gotten over it, obviously.
Yeah, I didn't know that they were even involved to like starting out. That's how little I knew about the case and what I was getting into to begin with. But no, I think the gentleman who played Johnny Cochran, I don't know his name, the actor, he did a fantastic job. He did a really good job. I agree with the woman that played Clark.
Sarah Paulson.
Sorry, there's so many names that I'm like, there's so many names I have a hard time. Even in the show, when I was watching the show, they're like,
I've got IMDb right in front of me, dude. Just,
see, I might open that up.
I'm cheating.
No, but
I do remember Sarah Paulson because she's in fucking everything nowadays.
Yeah.
Remember at the end, he's OJ's at his house, and he's like, "Where's so and so?" And like, "Where's so and so?" I'm like, I don't even remember those people. I had to go look it back up and realize it was the dude in his guest house. Okay, so why was that guy in his guest house too? Like, there's things about the show that maybe you guys don't know that I have questions.
Kato, he was just like his, that friend that you just always have. That's just like a complete leech or lackey.
Yeah.
He was basically that dude, and he actually lived in his guest house.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't know why he was there. I know that he was an aspiring actor, and I guess he was just living there, I guess because he was friends or something. I guess I see that. I don't know. It was just so weird for me walking into the show and seeing this guy. I thought maybe that was the guy that she was cheating on him with, and they were waking him up. I didn't realize that was all happening like within like a block of each other, of the accident, of the crime scene.
Yeah,
that was kind of confusing for me early on. But as it went on, obviously I caught up to it. But no, I thought that he was really funny actually in the show, but then I looked it up and he was actually pretty funny on the stand. Like he had like thrown out some jokes or something. Like
Totally
Clark, whatever her
clueless.
name is. Do you know?
Totally clueless. That,
Did
yeah.
you see what he said? Like she was like, "Aren't you glad you came?" or something like that. And he kind of giggled, like giggity, you know. And he's like, "Well, wouldn't you be?" And like everyone just started busting up in court and everything. He was like a surfer guy or something that just
Totally
happened to.
was.
Yeah,
An airhead. He is a total airhead.
yeah. Which it's, you know, how well can his testimony be?
No, well, right. I mean, that's what's crazy. Is like all these people that had key testimonies just seem to be the wrong types of people. You know, there weren't that many intelligent people that ended up being key witnesses in this trial.
Like the housemaid who was just kind of like, whatever. I don't know. I don't
whatever
remember.
Mr.
Like,
Johnny says.
whatever Mr. Johnny says. It's like they should have lost the case right there. Like,
well, she didn't even want to be there. That's the thing, is she didn't
Yeah.
want to be there. She was like forced legally to testify, right? So she showed up and she testified and did her I don't give a shit, man.
That happened to me once. I had to testify during a domestic dispute like case.
Really?
Because you're a
It
maid.
sucked.
You were
I
a
went there.
maid?
No, I just saw it happen, and I told the police when they knocked at my door like what I saw, and so like 6 months later, I get a summons, and I go there, and I have to wait, and I waited for about 8 hours outside because I'm not allowed in the court because that might skew my perception, like hearing other testimonies maybe and stuff. So I just sit outside for 8 hours while they pick jurors, and then they came out and said they didn't need me. And then I went back the next day, 3 hours. They're like, we don't need you today. I go home. I get all comfortable in my PJs, start to play some Xbox. They call me up like, we need you now. And so I had to go all the way back down there, do the testimony. And it was just kind of like, and it was like, whatever. But I made the courtroom laugh one time because he was like, what kind of face was he making when he did this? And I just went, I don't know. Like, it was really far away.
One of those
really far
diction
away.
faces.
Yeah, it's really far away.
And that got
I
him
could tell.
off, and that like either convicted him or that would be funny.
Yeah,
if
I
that
don't
face
know.
was.
Well, all
like,
I know is that like he didn't like I had like met this guy a couple times. He had like brain damage from getting like beat up in a gang fight, so he was not all there. And then so like 2 years later after that, I don't know what happened. You don't see the verdict as it like in most of those cases and stuff. I'm out to the movies, and there he is with the girl seeing a movie together. And I was like, so you just wasted 2 days of my time. Basically, I made it all about me, of course. I made it all about me, even though she was the one that got like beat up and stuff. But it was just like, wow, dude,
did
really?
he see you? Did he see you and give you a look? Give you that?
No,
that
no,
look?
he didn't.
No? Okay, that's kind of good.
He no,
I've
I don't
never-
think he
I've
noticed
never-
me.
That'd be really awkward, man. If you
It was awkward. I was worried that like because he lived in the complex I lived in. So when I got like the summons, I was paranoid as fuck that he was gonna like do something. But then I realized
Sideshow Bob, like
yeah, then I realized that would just be worse for him, you know. So
yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being one of the jury members? I mean,
dude, that episode that was my favorite episode. That was
is
hands down my favorite
crazy
episode.
bad.
I was worried. I was like, what, episode 5? That was the jury episode. But it was like up until then, I was like, how are they going to stretch this into 10 episodes?
Right.
And then they have that whole episode about what the jurors went through during that
No
year, and it was it was eye opening.
No
Nothing.
phones. Holy
No swimming. They couldn't
God.
go swimming. They couldn't like see their families. You know, it was just like,
It's like,
wow,
of course,
dude.
Of course, they decided in 4 hours, man. They just, and I even
Oh,
saw
yeah.
it too. I even saw. So one of the cool things about OJ Made in America is they interviewed the witnesses too. Like there were about 4 or 5 of them, and I mean they told the reason why they did, or they voted the way they did and whatnot. But one of the things they said was that, yes, the jurors, the jurors,
okay.
and they in like. I think a few of them said, dude, we've been away from our families for like 9 or 10 months and not been able to talk to them or anything and we all we get to do is go to our rooms and think about this trial. Of course, we've already made our decision. Like it doesn't take long to make our decision at all. Right. So that was like one of the reasons they were given, but it was definitely interesting to see the interviews of these jurors because they were just outright, like one of the older black women, she was just like, back in my day or back in that, during the time of the OJ, we took care of our own. And that was basically it. Like, she's just straight up, we took care of our own. Now, I don't know what I'd do, but back then, we took care of our own. And that was like why she voted away. She didn't care about any of the evidence, man.
Yeah, and that was like, it was like really, really obvious because they were like specific about picking the jurors and they wanted like as many black people on that jury as possible.
Yep.
So it was like once they got their jury and even the alternates, it was over. Like there was nothing the prosecution could have done because those people were hot off the fucking Rodney King incident. You know,
what do you mean those people?
Those specific African-American jurors made up their goddamn minds about the police force and about OJ Simpson that like before they even like got in the courtroom, essentially.
Yeah,
that's got to be so miserable. That's got to be so miserable. You know, like you had the one girl breaking down. Like that would be me. Like after like 4 or 5 months, I'd be crying to the judge like, please let me out of here. Please let me out of here. Like,
seriously.
Like you're just. I mean, all they did was sit. I mean, they just sat in a room basically with nothing to fucking do. They could barely read anything because they can't be like tampered with, right? They can't see any outside. I learned that during the Casey Anthony trial, how like crazy stingent they are about making sure that these people don't have any outside influences and don't know what's going on and don't know. You know, a lot of those people probably didn't even know who OJ was. You know, like that's what they would want. You know, so they don't have. Say have somebody that's just like as pure as possible. But when you go for almost a year with a case,
that's crazy.
Trying to keep those people from not being tampered with from outside sources, whether it even in the show you saw it, like they started to become friendly with the officers and stuff, and they would allow them to make calls, and you know, like that. That's so difficult to do, and it's so shitty to do to somebody. You know, to put that responsibility on them. But, you know, living in America, if you get called for, you know, to be on a jury, you know, that's your contribution to your nation. That's your public service. You know, that's what you have to do. But it just like, man, I felt so bad for them, just how they had to say that. It was basically like being in jail, like in a pretty jail for almost a year.
What surprised me is that at one point, at least in the series, the television series, I think it was during that episode where they were just doing the jury. They let it off, you know, it's just like, oh, you're going intercontinental, like, oh, this is gonna be awesome, right? Yeah, at one point, they even said that they're not allowed to talk to each other, and that surprised me because I always thought
no, they're not allowed to talk to each other about the case. They can talk to each other. Yeah, they're not allowed to talk about the case until they're in the jury room together.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. But still, it's like, how do you prevent that? I mean. Because
they're being monitored 24/7 by the police.
I guess except for being recorded. I guess
that's possible too. Yeah, and so it's So when they're in the group together, dude, I have ADD. I would fucking crack. I would go up like when they're doing the selections. I would just say I'm a racist.
Yeah,
so I get it. So I wouldn't have. So I get dismissed. Like I would just fucking make some shit up. I cannot handle that kind of boredom. I cannot do it. I would go crazy.
Well, and a lot of, I mean, and you know, you see that in the show, how a lot of, not a lot of them, but there were many members that were knocked out because for this reason or another. It got really, you know, the two sides were kind of battling for seats there, favorable seats, and they were just going back and forth at each other. I bet those people must have felt like God reached his hand down and blessed them personally when they were disbarred. But a lot of them didn't want to go, which surprised me. Like if I was there for like 6 months and after 6 months, unless I was just really invested in the case and I really felt like I had, you know, like I just wanted to do my good thing and everything. But I think after 6 or 7 months, I would probably be like so fucking done with it. And whenever most of those people were like upset they were getting kicked out, which I thought was kind of surprising. I thought we would see a couple of them be like, oh, okay, well, I guess my doctor's the same doctor that, you know, OJ has. I guess I'm out of here.
There's an element of Stockholm syndrome that happens in that situation. And
wait, what do you mean by like for
for the jurors, like Stockholm syndrome can happen in any like case where you're essentially confined or you're, you know, being held against your will to a certain degree. So like they really bonded with the, you know, the police maybe or the fellow jurors, or maybe they think like that this case is bigger than them and they have like no right to be left out of it. Or it's a high profile case. They might get famous later, you know, maybe be able to write a book or anything. Like, so I feel like some of them didn't even feel like it was their duty. It was just like they were locked into that mindset of like, this is what I'm doing right now. This is what I have to do. I got to see this through.
And if you
no matter
or
what.
even opportunity,
Yeah.
right?
But
which is why that one guy got caught writing, like he was taking notes for a book, like he was already like on it.
right.
And I don't know how accurate that is to what happened in real life, but that definitely happened in the
think
show.
at least one of them wrote a book. I mean, at least one of the jurors
probably had to use a pseudonym. Because I don't think you're allowed to reveal like your real name that you're.
Yeah, but he was writing it like during he was taking notes about the conjugal visits. Remember,
he was tracking everybody. Yeah, all the conjugal visits.
Yeah, like
that's kind of creepy, actually. But
hey, man, you got to talk about what you did while you were there. You know, who was fucking who?
Yeah, I guess
people want to know that stuff.
No, you know what? I would be so pissed. I mean, granted, of course, being away from family would just be, just impossible for me just for the beginning of it. But if I was there for like 6 or 7 months and I got kicked out, I'd be so angry because I just invested
really?
6 or
You'd
7
be
months.
angry?
If I invested 6 or 7 months and literally for nothing, I mean that's ridiculous. That's rage material right there, man.
I guess there's definitely two ways to look at it. I guess I'm a piece of shit. I would just be like, I'm so glad I'm out of here. Like, I don't know. I'm not one of those people that has like anything to prove or.
No, it's just like something like you've already been in it for like that long. Otherwise, it would literally have been 6 months of wasted time. Even if it's just like a little, at least you make you have some impact on just one decision for one person. At least it's something. I mean, if you don't, you just literally wasted your 6 months of time, and that would feel even worse to me. So,
what do they do for people who are there that have to work? Do they compensate them? They've got to on some level, right? Because you can't just.
I think your employer has to pay you.
Really?
Yeah.
So you just keep making whatever wage you were going to make. So
true.
Those guys basically got paid for like a year's worth of work that they didn't really do.
I believe so. I mean, somebody could correct me about that. But
I don't know. I don't know the process that well. I have so many questions about the process.
Like I've done jury duty before, and I've been paid. So it wasn't like vacation or anything like that.
Let me ask you another question. Do you guys think that you can ever have a fair trial being a celebrity?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's something I was thinking about during the whole show. It made me think about that a lot. Like, do you ever have a fair trial when you're a celebrity? It has almost nothing to do with you, just your status alone, the way that you influence people, the way that people view you and see you, unless you're somebody, like infamous, that works in your favor every single time. Like, there's no way that people can just turn that off. Like, if even somebody like even with the streaming and stuff that I've done, I've gone to conventions and I've met, really cool people like Rampage Jackson. And, like you meet like these kind of, these celebrity figures and stuff. And every time it doesn't matter what happens. I always get butterflies, like in the first instance of meeting that person. Now, after I talk to them, I'm good. Like, I'm okay. But it's like, it's this natural human thing that you do. You revere these people, and that in itself, that outlook just tampers with everything. I feel like at the foundational level, that, and then on top of that, the money, the notoriety that comes with your case, everybody's trying to get a piece. That whole thing, it just corrupts so much. Could the O.J. Simpson not be a circus? The O.J. Simpson trial not be a circus?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of destined to be in a way. Now, I know there's been other celebrities like Martha Stewart that was arrested and tried and did time and everything. But even that, I remember, got a little circusy. Like it. I don't think that anybody who's famous gets like a truly fair trial. That's I think what I came up with in my head. For better or for worse, I don't know. I just know for a fact I don't feel like they get a fair trial just based on who they are. And I mean, everybody's different, but like if Leonardo DiCaprio went to jail, it's gonna be a totally, let's say me and Leonardo DiCaprio did the same exact thing, it's gonna be a completely different trial, and there's gonna be so much more room for corruption and problems in his trial than with mine, just simply based on his fame, is what I'm trying to say. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why you have the whole jury selection process, right? Like, if you have a super famous person, you're going to try to pick a jury that has no idea who this person is. But
Yeah.
if you are in the position where they do know them, yeah, I think it's very hard because these are people, right? We rely on a legal system that relies on human beings making a decision, and hopefully you do it. Doesn't seem to work for League of Legends as much, but, you know, in our legal system generally, you know, it's supposed to work. You're supposed to have, you know, at least encourage the people to think with you know, logic and be rational people, right? But I do agree with you. I think it's a combination of they've got money so that they can literally have the best legal team ever, you know, so that they're going to have an advantage there. It's probably going to be better than the prosecution if they are on the defense or they are the defense in that certain situation. But also, yeah, I mean, even the judge, so the judge is the one person that you can't, you know, you can't choose this person. This person is very, very likely to know the person. And look at Lance Ito, for instance, right? I think Lance Ito probably made some mistakes too, or that was swayed by just the whole social aspect of what was going on outside of the case. You know, maybe it should have been a mistrial, right? Like, if his wife lied about, you know, the consent or whatever form that she signed, I bet you in most cases that is literally a mistrial right there. But in this case, you know, maybe, you know, he you know, obviously decided to let another judge decide, which is a fair way to do it too. So I don't think that was completely bad, but you know, it's definitely, you know, like playing the tapes, not playing the tapes. Like, why would you play the tapes not for the jurors, but for the general public? Like, why would you do that? Like, I don't even understand. Like,
That was a shit move.
Well, here's
it doesn't even make any sense.
I get his logic though, right? You don't need to hear everything that he says. You only need to hear him say the N-word. That's it. You just need a sentence where he says the N-word. And as soon as you qualify that, then there's perjury. Okay, so because he was asked specifically, as uncomfortable as it was in court, if he had said those words in the last 10 years, he drilled him on it specifically. He said no. So that's all he really needed to show that was relevant to the case, right? To the perjury thing. But the rest of it, I didn't really feel like you necessarily needed to know for. I was kind of on the prosecution side of that. Like, you don't necessarily need to know all this. And in fact, I think it starts to, and I think this is what he was worried about. I don't know. I'm not a judge. I have no idea. But the way I saw it was he was worried about what direction this case would take if he were to allow everything to go out. But he knew he needed to let something go out. Yeah. So he let out what would qualify this guy for perjury and nothing more. Because otherwise then it becomes all about was it Furman? Yeah, it becomes all about him and less about the victims, you know, and their families.
So I mean, I'm arguing more from the standpoint you are, which is more for the prosecution. I just don't think he should have played it. They should have just had that that transcript, that 1 or 2 sentence transcript where he, you know, he basically uses the N-word twice, and that should have been it. Like, I mean, he thinks he's appeasing the public, but at the same time, he's, you know, I feel like he was inciting the public, and it's more likely it gets back to the jurors in some way, indirectly in the courtroom in some way, than not. You know, if everybody else in the world knows exactly what happened on those tapes. So I
you're talking about for everybody else. Yeah, I thought you were talking about for the
he played it for the public. I mean, the public.
Oh yeah. I thought you were talking about I thought you were talking about the jurors.
No,
why he did that for the
jurors got exactly what
okay.
It's just, you know, just even referring to it, right, in whatever, you know, whenever they were questioning witnesses, or, you know, Johnny Cochran just referring to it. I mean, the witnesses can tell what happened. You know, like, just the tapes should have shown blah blah blah, you know, or you know, just whatever. Like, him getting that statement in, even though it's like an objection is made, the jurors still hear in some way, right? So if they would have just he would have just completely ruled it out, then Johnny Cochran wouldn't even been able, or any of the defense wouldn't have been able to refer to it. So it was just weird. I mean, it just felt like he totally buckled to what was going on outside of the courtroom, where it should have been just focused on the trial. You know what I mean? There were social implications of all this. There's no question, right? But as a judge, I mean, that shouldn't play any role in this, you know, in a case.
One thing I didn't like about the show was how much it tried to tie in the problems we're having today with racism without giving any sort of like positivity, or I don't know, at the end of the show it's like how am I going to say this? I felt like it was trying too hard to relate with what we're going through today and trying to make that connection, and it just kind of shoved it in your face a lot. And then at the end, you know, I don't like anything that continues this sort of path we're going on where
the hate.
I just the hate, like
Yeah.
it's a very media driven hate, you know. And I feel like by watching this show, I didn't feel like I walked away feeling any better about it. I like it almost like it kind of, I don't know, it kind of enraged me a little bit more. I don't know how to explain. I've been trying to come up with a way to explain this in my head and articulate it, but it something about the show bothered me with its emphasis on what's happening today with the race stuff and tying it all in so much, and then not coming out with something at the end that made it seem positive or helpful in any way to our problems today. Like
maybe they don't have the answer.
Well, they might not have I'm not maybe even necessarily seeking an answer, but maybe just like some positive wisdom or something. The only thing that they say at the end is in that conversation between Cochran and the prosecutor. He says, like, what you've done today will not stop it. It'll just keep coming. It'll be just like it was before. And it's almost like we're all going like, yep, yep, you know, like that kind of thing. But it's not like I don't know. I just felt like it would be better if, like, in the end he said, but you know what, man, like, you know, we'll find a way to persevere. Some, you know, give us some kind of positive. It just seems like it's like feeding into the negativity almost. It's almost like it's just like inciting more.
Well, at the end,
like reopening old wounds and shit, and then not doing anything to, like, I don't know, clean them or you know, bandage them.
So a couple things. I mean, first off, you have to remember, like, you know, the series happened like months ago. Like, you know, like this didn't happen like just this week, right? After a lot of the stuff that we've had happen in the last 2 months. This was actually prior to that. Of course, we still had issues where, you know, we had some you know, racial incidents with the cops in different states, but not like the frequency that we've had recently. So you know, us watching it now, obviously, and honestly, like, I watched the Made in America like exactly when a lot of this stuff was happening, so it was just like resonating big time. But you know, at the end, you know, Chris Darden does have that moment with Johnny Cochran, but at the end, Johnny Cochran, you know, you remember the whole president was on, and they were just like, you know, they're all watching on TV, and they're like, oh my God, we've actually made an impact, you know, like a larger impact on the nation, or at least our voice is heard finally. And, you know, it was somewhat, you know, from a standpoint of at least this happening a lot, it was somewhat insular just to LAPD, like just crazy acts of mistreatment and, you know, violence when you were talking about just the police force and black people. So you know, like that particular time, it was more about just like the LAPD was just crazy bad. I mean, it was incredible. It's just how terrible the LAPD was. But you know, now, you know, we're talking about, you know, something a little different. I mean, but like quite a bit different. You know, this is happening everywhere. You know, I don't know if it's been always happening everywhere. It's just like the internet just wasn't as big with reporting news and all, you know, just the way it is now.
The invention of like cell phones with video has really,
yeah.
Because like that Rodney King thing was just like a happenstance. Someone happened to have a camera and was recording it.
Yeah.
Now it's like you've got cops with fucking cameras attached to them. You got people. Everyone's got a cell phone that can take videos. So it's like once that started happening, it was more like the lid was blown open. It was like, oh shit, this has been going on like everywhere. We just didn't see it because, you know, 1993, who had a camera, right? You know, like.
So I guess my point is there was some positivity at the end. You know, like.
I felt like it was kind of a hollow positivity because of where we're at today. We knew that what we were seeing on screen, it really didn't end up helping. You know, like it hasn't made things better. You know. It's like at the end of the day, they really haven't made any change. And I want to be clear. I know that this, you know, race was a part of this. It's a part of what happened. And I don't want to ignore that part of it at all. You know, like I really don't. Yeah. What I see is so often, especially lately, and by lately, I mean a lot this year, I see a lot of media outlets throwing more gas on the fire than water, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
And I watched this and I felt like it was just a little, it wasn't necessarily gas, but it wasn't water either. You know, I don't know. I felt weird about it after I was done. I just felt like it was kind of adding to it, like inciting it, like opening up old wounds about OJ and you know, tying it into today and stuff. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was it doesn't always have to be a positive message, but I felt like because everything's so fucking shitty.
Well, hold on. I think I lost these guys.
I don't know. I'm having a hard time articulating it, but I think that's the best way I can, is that I just feel like so many things gas on the fire and make it worse. And I didn't really feel like the show didn't do that. Like, I feel like the show might have.
So here's a pretty complex question, all right? And we have to go back to that time, right? And really just.
And I can barely do that because I was young, you know, like.
Yeah. Well, just you know, right now, just at the age that you're now, and just all your experiences and everything. So if you go back and, you know, we're looking at the trial, and don't just isolate it to the trial, because, you know, obviously that we're gonna have a certain. We all know he did it, you know, or at least I think we all think that he did it. But if you look at it from the standpoint of, you know, Nicole and Ron, you know, basically having injustice, you know, not basically OJ not being guilty of it, versus basically this whole mistreatment of black people and you know, just police force mistreating people in a huge way, being out in the open and in some way being rectified and having some justice brought in that sense, you know, which is greater, you know, like was the outcome actually generally a positive, you know, especially since OJ lost a civil case too, and then he ended up, you know, at least financially being just locked down to an extent. Overall, just the grand scheme of things, like how do you feel, at least socially, it was the outcome was?
Hollow. Yeah, like I feel like it was really hollow.
Okay.
Like if that were to happen today, I would feel like we didn't really get anywhere. Like, I think that the facade would be that we did, right. But I think I agree with what's his name at the end. Like, it's like, this isn't going to make, you know, I'm glad the
only people whose lives are changed are rich people in Brentwood, you know, rich black people in Brentwood. That's it. And it's like it's totally true. Like, it's the only person who benefited from that was OJ, you know, like, and people like OJ.
I don't think I can condone letting a guilty man free based on a black versus white, black wins kind of situation. You know, like, that makes me sort of uncomfortable. I'm glad that the LAPD was outed. And I'm glad that this man who is, you know, a piece of shit racist was found, and you know, they were able to deal with that and put some concrete evidence to what they've all felt since, you know, Rodney King and stuff like that. So I'm glad that came out and that happened, but I don't think that should excuse letting a man who, in my opinion, is very obviously guilty, to let him go free. I can't condone that. I think that's hollow. I think that kind of thing. Now in a more, I guess, what's the term I'm looking for? I guess in a more practical sense, I'm glad it all worked out. You know, like, right. OJ got off and you know, like the black community felt like they got a win, and then he was arrested later. So he still ends up in jail, right? Yeah. So everybody's happy at the end of the day now, but I don't know. I feel like a huge social issue. I think, at least not during the case. I think it should have been like tried to separate it out, but I mean, that's kind of impossible. Like, let's focus on what's happened here. Let's focus on the victims. Let's focus on OJ and whether or not he killed this person. And after that, we can talk about how fucked up that was, you know, like, right. And what we can do to make it better, you know, that kind of thing. So I I hesitate to feel happy about somebody getting off of murder because of a social,
nobody's gonna be
because of a
happy
social
about it. Yeah,
situation.
nobody's gonna be happy. But can you imagine?
But that's not true. There are people who are happy about it. You know, that's the
oh
thing.
no, but I'm talking about us in general. But can you imagine if somebody right now, let's just say there's a cop on trial right now for killing somebody killing a black person wrongly. It'd be kind of similar. Like, let's say you have a jury of people come on and have to rule against that. They already have, you know, a little bit of I don't know, just some kind of bias. They might at least have some kind of bias, just given, like you said, the media's perception of how the media has been kind of feeding us all this stuff. We could have something similar happen today, to be honest with you. It just depends on the people that are selected for the jurors. That's kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah, and I try to think like who really wins in that situation. Are we brought together closer as humans because of this, or did it divide us more? You know, and that's another thing I try to look at. I don't necessarily think that what happened there made us any closer or it made it any better for us in bridging the gap, you know, in dealing with racism. I just don't feel like it made us closer. If anything, I think it separated us further. Which is unfortunate. Which is unfortunate. So I don't know.
We don't have
it's
the
tough,
answer.
man. There's no, and that's the thing. It's easy for me to sit on a show and make whatever, you know, comment I want to make. But this was a year-long complicated process that had many moving parts. And there's, you know, this is just my opinion from watching a fucking 10-episode television show and some highlights on a YouTube, you know, thing of the real case. So my opinion's probably not a good one, but I don't know. It's a very intricate and very complicated case, and I think that the people in it did the best they could. I think there's some of them that did the best they could, while the rest of them were just throwing shit in gears. You know, like half of them were like trying to clean everything and figure this out, and then half of them were just throwing wrenches and fucking oil and all this.
I mean, that's,
you know, they're playing the game, but not even just the defense. Like, I feel like a lot of people were like, if just how much it ended at, like how many, like even like the woman who was writing the book, you know, and like released that stuff about her going over and giving like that. They were just adding to it. It just seemed like there were a lot of people that
people were cashing in on this stuff, you know,
and cashing in on it too. Yeah, for sure. And money, you know, that's a big thing too. You know, money plays a big part in this in all equations, and that's just unfortunate as well. It's crazy, man. It's crazy to see us even as like as a nation, or as a people, that we've come to like this kind of like complicated. Like, we used to have like shacks and farms and, you know, live off the land. It's like now we've got these complicated fucking cases where it's like everybody's weighing in. I think we do the best we can while still having human error. Especially
with celebrities too. It's pretty rare that we actually have criminal court cases with celebrities. I mean, there's only been, how many can you think of? There was that one actor recently. What was the actor that was you know, arrested like for a crime he did years ago. He was
O.J. Simpson.
No. There's an old. He was on actually a really big TV show like semi recently too. I can't remember his name right now. Probably somebody in the Twitch chat will probably remember. But it's very rare that we have just celebrities, you know, movie stars or TV stars or athletes. I mean, more so athletes actually than anything else, you know, in criminal cases. So O.J. Simpson being actually a little bit of all of those things, like an enormous celebrity. I mean, that's like when stars just, you know, line up in a bad way, you know, and this happens. So it's.
I'm trying to think. Michael Vick.
Yeah, I mean, you've had like Michael Vick, and you had like Ray, you know.
Like Martha Stewart, Wesley Snipes. I mean, a lot of his tax evasion shit.
Yeah, nothing like
Wesley Snipes was
though. Double homicide.
Yeah, that's. I know what you're talking. I know. Yeah, I don't think anything like that. But I don't know. I'm as far as I'm concerned, like Michael Vick is just as bad with dogfighting. I'm a softie for pit bulls, but I know what you mean though. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but getting back to the series, I mean, I think they did an excellent job. I mean, I was entertained. You know, I felt like I had watched the documentary going into it, so I did know a lot of it. But I think they did a good job of portraying, I think, everything that was factual. And you know, I think what was up to interpretation, it didn't seem too unreasonable to me. And I don't even know exactly which moments were, but there wasn't anything that I felt like was just egregious. So overall, you know, I thought the series was great.
I had a problem with the glove scene, and I went back and watched like the real life, you know, yeah. And it was pretty much exactly the same way. But what I didn't like is they didn't follow up with it like at all. Like in the real case, like the next day they had the guy who had made the gloves. He was there on the stand, like he had designed them, and he had explained the only reason those aren't fitting him is because they were wet and it caused them to shrink.
Right.
That's why it didn't, you know,
he had a rubber
it didn't
glove
work.
on
And he had the latex glove underneath it. Well, I don't know if for those of you who just watched the show, you may not know this, but they actually brought another XL pair of those gloves into the courtroom, not the ones that they found, and he put them on and they fit just fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think in the show, I'm sad that it didn't like follow up with that at all, because I felt like that was important to know because it made a difference for me.
Shot and they just ended up having to edit it out for time or something.
Maybe. I felt like the glove thing kind of pissed me off in the show and in real life too. It seems so obvious that like he wasn't doing all he could to get the glove on, and it did look like the latex.
Scrunching his fingers and like, oh no, it's
all.
I can't do it.
So in the documentary, they had they had one of the attorneys. I forget which one it was, but they were being interviewed, and they talked about the whole glove scene. They're like, yeah, you know, OJ up until this point was real solemn and stuff, you know, and this is a guy who's super charismatic, right? OJ is like probably one of the most likable celebrities, you know, like people have said if you met him in person. And they said, yeah, he was just solemn the entire time during the case. But the moment that the glove didn't quite like fit perfectly, he just went into OJ mode and just started just doing like this whole crazy act, like look, I'm trying to pull on, and like yeah, like doing the freaking juice thing, yeah. So they were saying that it was just crazy circus, like when he was doing that. But yeah, I agree. I mean, at the end of the series, they did. You know, they mentioned the witness didn't, you know, like even one of the black witnesses said that, oh, I mean, he wasn't trying his hardest either, or he, you know, like
they do mention.
I don't think it mattered that much in the end, even though the whole if it don't fit, you know, you can't quit kind of thing came up. But in the end, I think the Furman thing was the worst possible thing to.
I just didn't think it was that big of a loss for the prosecution, like from just viewing it and watching the case, you know. In real life, I watched it and I was like, well, he's not able to get that on because the fucking the latex is underneath it. That's
it was so brilliant.
It was
brilliant by the defensive team to actually, you know, like goad him into doing that. I mean, that was true. That part was completely true. They even said that like on like when they interviewed some of the defensive attorneys, they completely were goading Chris Darden to do that. And
so how did they know that it? Okay, I know in the show it shows. You know, John Travolta walking up and Shapiro walking up and putting on. Like, is that how they knew? Like, how did they know to goad him? Like, how did they know to goad him into that? Like,
I mean, how can
how can
Shapiro walk up? Yeah. How can Shapiro walk up with no latex glove and just try on the gloves? But,
you know, I mean, that's the show, but like, how does it go down in real life? You know, maybe I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know if that happened in particular, but what the defensive attorney did say, and even Marsha Clark did say in the interview too, is that like this is like a fundamental rule of you know, just being a lawyer or you know, just being in, you know, court cases or what, just being on trial, is that as a lawyer you never like have any kind of, especially demonstration that you don't know the results of. Like you never take that risk ever, even if it's like 99%, you know, you think the result would be that. If you don't know 100%, you never do it. So that's why they were just like, Chris Darden doing that was just shocking, you know, like kind of crazy. And you could tell it had a lot to do with just emotion, you know, and him feeling like he had to prove something. And that's another thing too. They made it in the documentary, they made it sound like Chris Darden felt like he needed to one up Johnny Cochran, and just even from the standpoint of being in the black community to some extent, not really one upping Johnny Cochran, but presenting a strong black male, in that trial. He was just trying to do that, and that I think ended up resulting him in doing that. Not so much. I don't even know if it's so much of him feeling like that would have ruined the case, because they were just pretending that, oh my God, please don't put him on the witness stand, or if you don't put him on the witness stand, I will, type of thing. Yeah. I don't know if that exact, that played out that way. He might have said those words, but I don't know if they were pushing that emotion, or if they were just trying to push more of an ego emotion out of Chris Darden. At least that's what they made it sound like on the documentary.
How much of that show was like fluff, and how much of it kept to the real thing? Because I feel like in the courtroom they kept to it really pretty well, but I felt like outside the courtroom I never knew what was real or not. Like for instance, their relationship, like this relationship between Clark, the will they won't they with like Clark and like was that a real thing? Was there a relationship there? Like was that a real thing? These are things I probably should have just looked up on Google, but I didn't look at them. Sometimes I don't know in the show where it's like I sometimes can't tell what is like her with like the nude picture, like her nude picture got released.
Oh, that happened.
Like I looked that up and that actually did happen.
That happened.
And I don't know, but stuff like that happened, and I was like the Nazi thing in the case, like we talked about earlier. I'm like, was this guy a true Nazi sympathizer, or are they just trying to make this guy seem like a Nazi because he was racist, like he was a real piece of shit? Like these are all things that I'm kind of like, I didn't know where the line was being kind of blurred. I didn't know between reality and what wasn't.
Marsha, I mean, I
think
I'm
okay with it. It's a show to entertain. Of course,
they have to.
And I'm okay with that as long as the heart of the case, and you're not like at the end he's like guilty or something. Like you totally changed the script. Like I'm fine with that. I just didn't know, like part of me felt like I shouldn't go away talking about this too confidently with people who haven't seen the show, because I'll be like, oh, wasn't it crazy that blah, 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 blah was a Nazi sympathizer? And then they'll be like, he was just a racist. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I mean, of course he was. That was just in the TV show. Right. So I don't know. Right. Do you guys know of anything in the show, like where they drew that line? Just why this happened?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like, I can't point out, but I would say maybe the Marsha Clark Darden thing was maybe just exaggerated, or they kind of went a little bit further with it just to build up even more sympathy for those two towards the end. But Marsha Clark had that kiss me moment, like look into my eyes, kiss me moment, right, with him, and that was, I don't know, that if there was anything fabricated, I think it might have been that, because it didn't happen, right? Like they didn't close on that, so factually they probably didn't get together, and they could have played around with that a little bit. That would make sense for them to play around with that.
Okay, so just for anybody who was curious, as I was, I did a Google search.
Oh no!
And there's an eonline.com news thing, and I'm telling you, this is the longest fucking blog post I have ever seen in my life, with pictures. It goes episode to episode, talking about fact and fiction. Here, let me copy it, and
oh my god,
I'll toss it over. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't have time.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, in case anybody. No. I'm not saying we're not going to read it right now. I'm just saying, if you're curious, someone has done quite a write-up on it. So I'll just throw it here in the chat. There we go. Anyways, I don't know. I sort of liked their relationship because it was like a professional thing, but they obviously had like a little thing for each other. Did you want them to get together? Like, did you guys care at all about them really in the end?
I thought it was cute.
Yeah, I think
Pam and Jim thing going on, from the office.
Yeah, I thought it was cute. I mean, and again, like I didn't really follow really like my perception of the whole case was that they blew it, right? They totally botched the whole thing. So I didn't really have a very sentimental or just feel for or even just really feeling for those just both of them, Marsha Clark and Chris Darden, before the series. So afterwards, I don't know, I think they did a pretty good job. I felt like overall, like the the viewpoint the whole series, they really concentrated on was Marsha Clark's and then Johnny Cochran's. I felt like those were the biggest, they were the two biggest actors, or at least the script I found focused mostly around those two. And, it was important, at least for the series, for us to have some sort of, just some sentiment for Marsha Clark, being a single mother and having to do all this. I mean, there's definitely those moments, right, where Johnny Cochran pokes a joke at her and child care, and she stands up for herself, obviously, in court. There was definitely that sentiment in the series where I didn't really feel like that wasn't the rhetoric at all in the media, like, for sure with Marsha Clark. They were just bashing her, especially her looks and everything like that. I mean,
the hair, like,
it was brutal. I do remember that part of it. It was just
I remember that too. My mom was really pissed off about that because she kind of had the same hairstyle back then.
Your mom,
it wasn't as curly. It wasn't as like Jerry curly, but she had like,
the Jerry curl, man. It was pretty Rick Jamesish, man. Like,
I just remember my mom at the dinner table being like so mad that they were focusing on that when there was a fucking double murderer in the room, like.
Yeah,
I do like how they humanized her a lot, like how they showed her and her struggles, and that must have been an incredibly difficult task to convict. It might have seemed like an easy thing, but just trying any celebrity will probably get you a ton of hate from their fans. And it just to go
God
through
forbid
what she
you
went
say
through is
anything
crazy.
critical about a YouTuber on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, you see it even in our little niche on the internet, niche community on the internet.
Of course,
it's pretty crazy. So I give huge kudos to obviously the jury and the judge and everybody involved that was trying that case. That was a really difficult case. Did it bother anybody else how? And maybe this is just the way O.J. Simpson talked. I've never talked to him. I don't know. But did it bother you guys how much Cuba Gooding had to like reference everything with football? Like, put me in, coach. Put me in. It's like, we get it. You played football.
Oh, you're the quarterback, and
I really don't doubt
we're not passing. We're not.
He called himself the Juice. Like, I feel like there was a big ego there, and football was his life for the longest time. So I don't know. I buy it. I buy that he would do that shit.
He's like, you're gonna do this in the third quarter? You're gonna do this right now?
That was
he said something at the end that made me go.
The ruling.
There was something. There was a scene at the end, like in the last couple episodes, like right at the end, that made me just cringe. I was like, okay, this is too far. Like, if he really talked like this, I would shoot myself. Like, if every other word was a football reference. I can't remember what it was. Now I feel like I got to go back and figure it out. But I don't remember what it was. He said it was kind of one of those like, put me in, coach, kind of moments.
Oh yeah, it was put me in, coach, because they were talking about he wanted to be a witness, right?
Is that it? Was that the one? I think it might have been.
He wanted to take the stand. He wanted to
take the stand. And he's like, put me in, coach. I don't know, man. I feel like there was a couple other instances where it popped up, and I was just like, we get it, man. You played football, like we totally get it. And that could have just been the ego. Could have been, you talk about what. You relate things to what you're, comfortable with. And I'm sure that definitely football comes up in conversation with OJ. But I just felt like for the show, they were like constantly throwing out those little, like, I'm a football player quips, I don't know. Like, the put me in, coach thing was a little much for me. Other than that, I thought the dialogue was pretty good, pretty smart. And I mean, a lot of it is right from the courtroom. But a lot of it isn't. And I felt like, the writing was actually pretty spectacular with the show.
Yeah.
Other than the Kardashian shoehorning and the
come on, that was funny.
It was funny. It was funny, but like, I don't know, man. It's like, can we just not make this about the Kardashians? Like, even in
Kardashians nowadays.
Like the last thing I want, like if I'm gonna watch a show about O.J. Simpson, like the last thing I want to know is about like the Kardashian kids and stuff. Like, I'll go watch the Kardashians if I want that. Like, just. Don't filter into all my other shows. Like, you do your thing, I'll do mine.
Yeah.
But anyways, besides that, and then I thought the writing was really well done. I thought it was pretty articulate. I think the actors really nailed their lines. I think they were very vocal. I think they were very passionate. They looked very passionate about the roles that they had. like that you could tell that they had really gotten into some of those characters and really brought them to life. Like I said, Johnny Cochran and most of the prosecutors, really. I didn't really feel that way with Cuba Gooding Jr. That just couldn't get past him being OJ. But other than that, I think it was pretty great show. I think I don't know how they could have done it much better. Without it just being opinionated shit, you know, it's all just opinions. But I thought it was a pretty damn good show.
I did wish that I think Cuba did a pretty good job with some of the mannerisms of OJ, but you know the thing about OJ that was, you know, conflicting, I guess, with a lot of people is that he was just so likable, that guy, and it has a lot to do with how he looks too. And I think Cuba kind of naturally has a scowl these days, you know, like unless he's smiling. Yeah. So he wasn't like that likable. Where it would have been cool if they had a guy who actually looks very pleasant, and then you have that juxtaposition, you know, like he's a killer, but he looks like, you know, this you know, handsome superstar, you know, movie star kind of thing. I think it would have been cooler if they would have gotten that more of that dynamic, because that's the crazy part about O.J. Simpson, you know, is that his charisma was just beyond, like, you know, just next level type of thing, where everybody loved OJ that met him. And, you know, him being a killer was just what made this so compelling. So I didn't quite get that, you know, like with Cuba. Cuba, I was just like, I kind of just didn't like him. I just didn't like him.
He wasn't very sympathetic.
Yeah. But he got the mannerisms very well. Like his acting, like you said, was really good. But unfortunately his look just wasn't, which kind of, it's a bad thing.
So we all pretty much think that he did it. I mean, right? Is that where we're all at?
I mean, when you had an actual civil case, when you have a civil case where there was no media involved, nothing, and it was in a different county, it was like unanimous, quick. It was like the quickest trial ever, too.
Yeah, my favorite bit is when Marcia is like having drinks with her partner's friends, and they like pressure her to talk about the case, and she breaks down what would had to have happened if it was a conspiracy and the cops planted evidence. And it's so based on coincidence and timing, perfect timing, and all, and like the right people with the right motives and shit. And then like she just mic dropped. Like it was like, there's no way, there's just no fucking way, dude.
And she should have done that during the closing statement, right?
Honestly, she probably should have saved that for the court. Yeah, like that was pretty good.
Here's the thing, though. I think even though that he may be guilty, I think I may be happy with a not guilty verdict. Even though I feel like he did it, I think I'm happy because I feel like the defense, mostly with the Freeman, whatever his name is, I fucking his name. Furman, especially with Furman, I think he gave enough reasonable doubt that I don't feel like I blame the jury for voting not guilty. Like when you put, I don't know, it can, I think it go either way, but I think there was enough reasonable doubt there. And I think all too often, especially today in our judicial system, that we are quick to judge and we are quick to make people guilty just on it's like they say in the Making a Murderer documentary, you need only to be accused of a crime and everyone will think that you're guilty and it will ruin your life sometimes, you know? And it was good to see at least that this jury, you know, took what they had, and even though there was a lot of evidence against him, that they felt like there was enough reasonable doubt to vote against him. I at least liked that because I felt like I said, all too often I think innocent people go to jail just for simply being accused. So it was nice to see somebody like get off, even though I know that sounds terrible.
Right, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there,
and that's fine. That's fine.
I mean, DNA is not reasonable doubt. Okay, DNA match is a complete. I mean, that should have done it. It's just for some reason these folks just didn't care about DNA. But yeah, I mean, they were just, you know, the defense did they were
back in the 90s. Okay? We didn't care about
they did a fantastic
science, you know.
Yeah,
I know that sounds a little crazy, but at the same time, when you're talking about the DNA, you can't trust that DNA. You can't trust the DNA because we have a guy who got on the stand. We have a guy who got on the stand and said that he does and loves to plant evidence against black people and that he is a racist.
And
so
they did a masterful job. Okay, they did a masterful job.
They like this, or they did the DNA before they knew Mark Furman was a racist. And
I know. But what I'm saying is it threw enough doubt in there. It threw enough doubt in there that while I, may not ultimately, if I were a betting man, I would throw it on, O.J. Simpson being guilty. But at the same time, I do have to give kudos to the defense. I think the defense did a good job of doing what they could to prove reasonable doubt with what they had. And I felt like I didn't blame anybody for voting not guilty. Now, do I feel like he's guilty? Yes. Do I see where they would vote for him being not guilty? Yes. I can see that. So
I can see it. I just don't agree.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I don't agree with it, but I can see it. And so it wasn't one of those things that just made me angry. Sometimes you see court cases, and if it doesn't go the way that you think it should, for instance, like making a murderer, it makes people angry, right? It makes me angry. It feels like, because you feel like justice isn't done. And I didn't feel that. I didn't feel angry at the end of it, even knowing the outcome already, because all the facts and everything were new to me. I still feel as guilty, but I wasn't angry about the verdict. Maybe I would have been different if it was happening, today, like right now as an adult, and I was able to follow it a little bit.
Okay,
closer,
so if that's the case, right? I mean, this is where it's one of these things where it's just situations where I understand it, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm not happy with that decision at all. If a murderer gets away, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
but you can understand it, right? You can understand it.
But understanding it means that you accept that this legal system is a game. And it's
I do.
That's what it is. I know.
But that's what it is. I mean, that is what it is.
And that is the reality of it. But that doesn't, I don't like the fact that, basically you can be gamed out of justice. And, that is the reality. That's what happens. And that's why it's very important that you have a lot of money and you can afford this freaking all-star team of lawyers. But I mean, that guy getting away with murder.
A clown car on the side of the fucking courtroom, just so many people right there. And it's just these two prosecutors, just okay.
It's a guilty until proven innocent thing, right? Yeah. I just feel like all too often it's you're guilty until or innocent until proven guilty. It's too much you're guilty until proven innocent, Yeah. And I think the responsibility of discovery and stuff like that, I think it was well handled, and that it fell on the prosecution. The prosecution did the best they could, and I just think it's just nice.
They didn't do the best they could. That was the issue. They made mistakes.
Well, I mean,
and that's what I mean when playing the game. One team was masterful, the other team made a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes are what ended up costing them the case, costing at the time no justice for the Furman family and the Brown family.
But don't you thank God that we have people out there that are willing to fight for the innocents like that? That's what I'm trying to say is I appreciate that. Even though,
of course. I mean, they're they're public servants to a degree, right? District attorneys and things like that, right? They represent us, the people.
Yes.
So yeah, I do appreciate those people, but I'm just saying they making a mistake and again it being a game and the results being because of how the game was played. Where that's where it just bothers me. It's just crap.
Yeah.
It's just I had to rely on this guy to represent me. It's just trial by combat. It's I got to rely on this guy to freaking kill this guy so I can survive
and go to fisticuffs.
Exactly right. And that's the part that gets me. Yeah.
Well, ChanManV, you're wrong, but that's okay.
At least we disagree on something, right? We gotta disagree on something.
Fuck you, man.
But everybody, just a reminder that you guys can join in our discussion. Just whatever, ask your questions or just make any kind of comments that maybe we forgot by going into this Discord channel and letting Monkey Overlord know. Apparently nobody's saying anything in the channel right now, even though there are people in the channel. So I don't know what you guys are doing in the channel, but talk to Monkey Overlord and he'll definitely let us know. In the meantime, maybe I don't know. You guys want to take some text questions for now?
We're listening to you guys.
Oh, Hey, somebody's. Oh, whoops! I just. Oh, sorry. I just like went into their channel for a second, just to peek in
did,
there.
yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, you like
bad.
stopped talking. I was like, what did I do? Where did I like?
God.
Where are my hands at? What do I do
Called
with my
him
hands?
wrong.
It's
That's what you
hilarious. No, but yeah. So, anyways, in the meantime, you wanna take some text questions while we wait for Monkey to give the okay on a caller. Do we have any text questions, guys? Just type something in Twitch chat, and then we'll read
Yeah,
it
if you
out.
guys have any questions or comments or anything that you liked about the show, yeah, throw it up now while they're still getting. We have people that wanted to come on, right?
I think so. It's just we haven't confirmed the mics and everything like that. Once
Yeah,
we get
that's
that,
always.
hello.
We've
are you
learned our
there?
lesson over the last
Hello?
couple of shows.
So we're gonna wait.
Definitely
wait
learned
a
our
little
lesson
bit.
over the last couple of shows.
Yeah. Wait a little bit. Maybe as we're waiting, maybe we can talk about next week. How about that?
Talk about what?
Next week. What we're gonna do next week.
Oh yes.
Should we just do that?
You guys go ahead. I don't. This is another one. I feel like the last couple of times, you guys have just like picked it, and I've just been like, "Yeah, let's do this thing."
Next week you have to pick something. You have.
Yeah,
to
I think next week I'm gonna pick
Adam's,
something. Yeah.
Ellohime is next, man. Yeah, definitely.
I'm
all
always
Ellohime
so.
next
You
week.
guys tell me about this because I don't know anything about it until you just mentioned it today. So
I honestly, so what we're going to be doing next week is Kubo and the Two Strings, which is a movie that is debuting today, like this weekend. And honestly, I don't know that much about it, except for when I saw the previews, I felt like this is perfect for something for me and my sons and all my kids to go and watch together, because it's an animated film. It has to do with like swords and samurais and ninja, or at least a young, samurai or something of the sort. And the ratings I've seen on it have been fantastic from critics. I haven't read any reviews, but I just saw like Rotten Tomatoes and things, and it's in the the 90s. So supposed to be a really good film, and yeah, excited to watch it.
So those of you who are new to the show, what we're talking about is next week at 1:00, the showtime, we're going to be talking about this just like we were about the People versus O.J. Simpson, this show. And that's what the show's about, is going over these different movies and TV shows, comics, video games, and just having an open, spoiler-full discussion.
Spoiler.
So that's why we named it Spoiler Alert. So anybody that's watching today, it's your first time. If you guys want to take some time this week and watch this and then come back, it's kind of like a book club format. Come back next week. We're going to be talking about it. And then maybe you guys will have, something to say about it, or just want to listen to the show and you'll know where we're at. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what it's all about. I mean, I opened up the trailer right before we went live and started kind of to look at it, and I saw Regina Spektor. And that made me happy because I love Regina Spektor and she's doing some of the music for this. So the first thing I noticed immediately was that I love the music. So I'll probably end up liking the movie. I find typically that if the music's good and I like the music, I typically like the movie a lot more. So like Garden State or something like that.
Yeah.
But anywho, I'm excited. I don't know anything about it or enough about it. So just going to be jumping in blind to this thing. So hopefully it'll be really good, and we'll have some fun talks next week.
Yeah, it's from the studio that did Coraline, which I love. I love that movie. It's so good.
The people who did Coraline, didn't they do like a lot of those animated kind of claymation stop motion type things, like James and the Giant Peach and all that stuff?
It was Henry Selick that he's the director. He directed like James and the Giant Peach and Nightmare Before Elm Street.
Nightmare
Before Christmas.
Yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah.
That's a pretty big difference.
Movie.
Oh
but
my God.
I don't know if he founded the studio for Coraline, but like Leica is the name of the studio, and Coraline was their first like team effort movie they put together as that new studio, and this is their like sophomore feature.
Does Tim Burton have anything to do with this at all?
Nope.
No, not at all. Doesn't even look like it's in Burton film. So
yeah,
I was just
not that
curious.
it's a bad thing. I mean, I'm not,
because usually he has his hand in some way, shape, or form. I believe he did with Coraline, didn't he? He was involved in some way with that. I could be wrong.
No, it was.
I could be wrong.
It was Henry Selick, writer director, and it was based on a Neil Gaiman book.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong then.
Yeah.
I thought that he was was part of that.
So we got a question here, at least with the OJ thing. So everybody's being shy today. Nobody's like jumping on voice, but we do have a question in Twitch chat from Queen of Relax. Do you think OJ was served the ultimate dose of karma for his latest sentence for his theft in Las Vegas.
I mean, he's eligible for parole this year, so probably not. Like,
well,
I don't know.
He got 33 years, right, for the whole thing in the theft in Vegas.
He served what, 5? Like,
he's on parole in 2017, right?
Yeah,
2017. Sorry,
that's what they said, right? But so karma, yes, because all the things that he was charged with, if you actually hear the actual sentencing, it was ridiculous. Like he got charged for kidnapping just because he said the words nobody leaves this room. Like literally those words like convicted him of
did
kidnapping.
he even have a weapon on him? What was he
so
holding him up with?
He did have a weapon. So obviously he got just whatever, just threatening somebody with an armed weapon or whatnot. So he got charged for like 8 or 10 things in that whole incident. And for those of you not familiar with what happened, he basically on a trip to Vegas where he was attending a wedding, like it was meant to be attending a wedding, he was informed by a person that sells collectibles, like a person he's dealt with before, who apparently had another agenda too. But he basically informed OJ that there's this guy who was in town, staying at a hotel that had a lot of the memorabilia that was missing from the OJ's just collection, and things that he never really looked into, and didn't know why they were missing, but very, very special items to him, like I don't know, certain balls, certain footballs, or maybe his Heisman, I think at one point was missing too. But anyways, he felt like it was his way of like reclaiming these things, and it was like the only time he's ever been able to confront somebody like that. Anyways, the guy that actually, that he was going to meet didn't have any of his stuff. So the guy was misinformed in telling him, and the guy that he was going to meet happened to be another collectible guy that had a lot of he's even dealt with OJ in the past, like had him sign stuff and sell stuff for him, and he happened to have all kinds of other collectibles like Joe Montana balls and like different athletes. And so OJ went to the room, said, "Where's my stuff, man?" And he went with like an entourage of people and just confronted the guy. And in the end, what ended up happening is they just took all of his stuff and just left and walked out. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Like he went in, he's like, "Where's my stuff, man? Give me my stuff."
Armed robbery.
Yeah, so he just like took all his stuff. So that's why it ended up being armed robbery. And at one point he says, "Nobody leaves this room." And so when he came down to sentencing, they gave him like the max for everything that was charged there.
Okay, listen, if you're OJ Simpson and you listen, you went on a car chase, you were gonna kill yourself, you pretty much got away with murder, and you really, really, by the skin of your teeth, got out of some really horrible shit. Don't you think you toe the line a little bit? You would make absolutely fucking sure that you're not going to be caught in a situation that could jeopardize your freedom, because you, sir, are out there on like borrowed time, pretty much. Do I think it's karma? But I felt like he was gonna do something at one point, one way or the other.
If he did what he did, and like he had there's a history of spousal abuse before the murder case and stuff, he's gonna do something again.
Yeah.
He's bound to do something. Like that's just who he is as a person. He has anger issues. He has narcissism, egotism, all that shit. So he's kind of a sociopath.
It was at max level too during this time, because he was living the life. Like he wasn't in that celebrity crowd anymore. He was like hanging out with a bunch of hoodlums and just doing drugs, just going to
because all his friends abandoned him because he was a fucking murderer.
Yeah, exactly. So
they're all thinking, I'm next, I gotta get out of here, dude.
Yeah, so he was kind of like the godfather of this this more rugged crew. So definitely would have been in trouble for something else in the near future if it wasn't.
That's what I say. Like,
it's just how stupid
I guess
that
addiction.
was. How stupid that was that he got.
Of all the things to do, it's like that. Really, just bullying a guy in a hotel room about your.
And it wasn't his stuff. It was like completely wrong too. It wasn't even. That was so screwed up.
Maybe he was a big Joe Montana fan, whatever. I think what Diction said, I think that's why I don't want to call it necessarily karma, because I felt like he's gonna like Diction said, he's gonna do something. It's just inevitable. It's almost inevitable based on his character that something would have happened, and it did.
Right.
You know, so I don't know if that's karma really, but I do think it was stupid. I think if you have been arrested already and barely got away, you know, then you need to just, you know, mind your P's and Q's and stay quiet and just live the rest of your life nice and quiet, you know. But
it's that fatal flaw in criminals, right? They always have something that's just really stupid about them that ends up getting them caught or put in a situation where they.
I wonder how healthy he was mentally. I mean, I guess he couldn't have been healthy healthy
he had
mentally,
split personality
but
or something. He had something going on.
Yeah, and you know, they never really touched on that. I feel like on the show, like any like where he was at mentally, but I feel like maybe they should have. And I don't know if that even got brought up in the court. But I'm sure they had some kind of examiners or, you know, whatever. But I'm sure if it was a thing, they would have gone for it. Not that he was necessarily insane, but that, you know, there's something. I feel like I've always felt like there's something wrong with OJ. You know, like he's not quite a normal person, and he's not a normal person because he has an extraordinary life. But I feel like, I don't know. I just felt like he's not a very stable guy. So I don't know. I just felt like it probably was.
He's like the most charismatic, likable person to a, you know, raging killer. So like having that type of scope in your personality, obviously, there's something very wrong with him. I mean, I think it's probably more of like a split personality type of thing. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, but I would guess it's something like that.
Guys, ChanMan's a doctor, so. He knows what he's talking about. Are we gonna take these questions?
Let me see if there's any other ones too. Everybody's being shy today. I don't think we've actually got any live callers, but maybe we'll take.
This was a little bit tougher. This was a little bit tougher to watch. I feel like this show particularly wasn't as available as most of the shows that we've thrown out there.
Yeah, that's true.
This I had to find on a website through ChanMan. And otherwise, Cora bought it off of Amazon. And I was like, how many people are going to want to throw down money to watch this thing? So I'm not surprised that not a lot of people followed up with it. But I know a few people did. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things that maybe we need to be a little more conscious of, like making it available and picking things that are available and easy.
Yeah. So the next one we're doing is in the theater.
Is in theater, which I don't think is the easy. I think reasonably you can expect somebody to go in a week to go see a movie, you know.
Yeah.
But trying to find something online or even paying for it online and then watching. It wasn't the easy.
That's true. Yeah. Like if you had a hard time finding it, then obviously it wasn't very easy to find.
Yeah. But I think going into the movies this week isn't going to be a big deal. Most people go to the movies once a week or so, anyway. So at least I feel that way. I don't have the statistics on that. I'm not a doctor like ChanMan.
Oh man. Okay, well, so you guys see any questions here in Twitch chat? If not, then I guess we'll call it. I would recommend everybody, if you're interested in the whole OJ thing, go watch OJ Made in America. It's probably one of the best documentaries I've seen ever, especially sports doc. You know, it's because it was on ESPN, and actually ESPN makes some great documentaries, but this one was the best one I've seen. It's like 4 parts, and they're each 2 hours long or something. I mean, it's like an 8 hours. Yeah, or 10 hours. I think it's 10 hours too. It's 5 parts. So
I'll probably end up watching it this week just because I want to follow up. But yeah. I don't think I have anything else to add.
All right. I guess let's just call it then. Like, not too many questions today. Hopefully, we'll have some more next week. But yeah. Diction, where can everybody find you?
Hi, you can find me at twitch.tv/eatmydiction1. I might be streaming today. I'm not entirely sure, but I also have a Twitter, which is twitter.com/eatmydiction1. So that's where you know what I'm doing with my life. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Ellohime?
I said this last week. I'll say it again. I used to stream on Twitch.
What's up, dude? Seriously, I look at the title this week, and it's like spoiler alerts. I'm like, what?
I haven't streamed for I haven't done like a normal game stream in probably like three weeks to a month. You know what, man? I've been dealing with the moving thing, and on top of that, I had a a good friend of mine let me know that he's felt really neglected since the whole streaming thing has kind of kicked off several years ago. And a lot of my friends said the same thing. And so I just have taken some time just to spend some time with my friends, basically. And
you gotta find a balance. Hang out.
Yeah, and I gotta find a balance. I know.
Real life, seriously.
Yeah, I know. There's other things too, but for the most part, I've been spending a lot of time with my friends. I just told them, I'll take some time off and I'll spend some time with you guys. And I'm sorry. And I've explained to them, like, this is what I do, so you're gonna have to obviously share with me. But I figured since I did this for 3 years and I've been pretty crazy hard at it, trying to get to where I'm at, that if I'm gonna take some time off and spend some time with my friends, that it's not gonna be that crazy of a deal.
Yeah.
And most of the people that watch my stream are super patient with me, and I don't really do a very good job of keeping up with everybody, but that's just because nothing's really happening. It's just kind of like, all right, I'm hanging out with my friends again today, like that kind of thing. So I've just kind of gone off the radar and just been focusing on family and friendships, relationships, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I keep saying this, I should be back very soon. I'm pulling myself away from it because it's hard, because I haven't spent a lot of time with these guys and I forgot how much fun I have with them. So like we went fishing Tuesday morning. I went fishing all day with them and everything. So that's what's going on with me basically. But long story short, just trying to get things here in Ellohime life, real life, back in balance, because it's been kind of out of balance for a while. And I haven't, it's one of those things like Diction said, I think balance is the best word, because I've been totally in favor of the stream for the longest time. And so now I've kind of like tipped it entirely over to them. And soon it'll kind of, it'll figure itself out. But
yeah.
Anywho, so normally you would find me here, though. Normally you would find me here, but just not recently. So hopefully I'll be getting back into that. But
at least we have spoiler alerts with you. We have Ello for a good hour.
I've stayed dedicated to this.
Yes.
Wow. No, I think very soon. I know I said this last week too, but I think very soon I'm gonna be coming back and doing it full time and everything. So
awesome. No, it's really important. It's really important to get balanced. Like all of us just go so hardcore into, for me it shows, for you it's streaming, actually for Diction it's streaming too, that you lose perspective sometimes. It's always good to take a break and get everything back in line and what's important and everything together.
It's tough when they intervention style sit you down, like, hey, you've been a real shitty friend, like that kind of thing. That's basically what they did.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
That's basically what they did.
I totally get it, man. I totally get it.
So I was like, you're right. I haven't spent any time with you guys, and I haven't been returning your calls, and I am a terrible friend. So
it's like a movie.
So I'm trying. I'm trying to repair what I can, man. I'm a tired old dude. I can't handle this anymore. Anyway, enough about me. Where can we find you, ChanMan?
You find me on everything that ends in ChanManV. So Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Just ChanManV. You can find just videos. All the some other shows I do. I do Hearthstone shows and Overwatch shows and MMA shows. It's just lots of different podcasts, so you can find that there. You can find this show also on my channel, youtube.com/ChanManV, just the VODs, and iTunes. We're on iTunes and Google Podcasts now, and I don't see any reviews left now, guys. So we've been asking for the last 2 weeks, and I'm kind of disappointed.
Now we're not asking anymore. We're begging.
Yes.
We've asked nicely.
If you want to help out the show, you can leave a 5-star review with words too.
Nobody leaves this room until the review. Nobody leaves this room.
No, but seriously, if you guys like to listen to the just show and stuff, you can go to iTunes or Google Podcasts and search for spoiler alerts and try to find us. But you'd find us higher on the list if there was just some reviews and stuff. So if you can, just leave something there. But yeah, so next week, guys, just a reminder, we're going to be doing Kubo in the two, it should be the 2 strings. Oops, I put 2 strings. Kubo and the 2 strings, reviewing that movie, which is out this weekend. So, go check it out in your theaters. And we'll just be nerding out on it, or geeking out on it next week. And you can join it. Hopefully we'll get some callers too, guys. Be ready to hop on, join our discussion, come on Discord with us. So if you guys need mics and all that stuff, go get that in the next week too, because we really enjoy talking with you guys, like we have the last couple weeks. So yeah, it'd be really, really good.
Got some good questions.
Yeah, definitely.
Good feedback.
So for Eat My Diction, Ellohime, and myself, ChanManV, that's going to be it for spoiler alerts this week. We'll see you next week. Later.
And remember, if the glove fits,
You have to acquit.
That's right.